Okay, so we're going to do number 1. And number 1 is similar to this. And when you name a shape, you have to name it using the base and the three-dimensional object. So first of all, what's the base? What's the shape of the base here?
Square.
A square. Okay. So number 1, square. And the next thing you need to decide is what kind of three-dimensional object is that?
Pyramid.
That's a pyramid because it comes to a point at the top. So it's a square pyramid. And I think we're all in agreement on that. Correct? Okay. So next we have this object. A sphere. Okay, I think for the most part, we're okay with the spheres. We know what spheres look like. Number 3.
Can you say it?
Sure.
Rectangular prism.
Good. Mine doesn't look as pretty as the one on the picture. Sorry.
Number 1, it looks like a rectangle.
The reason that you know the number 1 is a square is because you have all 4 sides congruent and you have 4 right angles. So that's the definition of a square, right? When you have all 4 sides congruent and all 4 angles congruent in a quadrilateral, that's a square. The reason that number 3 is a rectangle is because this side is congruent to this side, but it's not equal to here or here, so that constitutes the top and the bottom are congruent and the left and the right are congruent, but all 4 are not. And we still know from the picture that we have 4 right angles, correct? So that's what makes it a rectangle at number 3 and a square at number 1. Okay, so this is rectangular. And it's a prism. Okay. So a prism is something where you take the shape and you stretch it. Here you took this back rectangle and you stretched it forward, and it's a front rectangle also. Make sense? And then we have number 4. So for number 4, we have shape similar to this. I know my shapes aren't as pretty as the ones in the picture, but that's okay. You guys don't mind, right? They're pretty close, though. I'm on spot today, I have to say. Give myself a little pat on the back. Okay. What type of shape is the base? That's a hexagon, right? 6 sides. So it's hexagonal. And then you have to decide, does it come to a point or does the hexagon stretch? It stretches, right? So what does that mean? Prism. Okay. All right, and then I'm just going to switch pages here. Great. And we'll start with a fresh slate for numbers 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, and I tend to think of shapes in just a little bit different way than Mrs. Schramm, but it's still a good way to look at it. Because I always think of Egypt when I think of a pyramid. So I start with pyramid or prism. So what shape is this, pyramid or prism?
Prism.
Prism. And a prism has 2 congruent bases. Like Mrs. Schramm says, they're stretched apart, right? Brandon, what shape are the bases in this figure?
I'm trying.
So this is a triangular prism. Okay, and then number 6, again, prism or pyramid? Shelton, prism or pyramid? You have your paper? Number 6? And my shape doesn't look exactly like the page, but it's still the same shape, okay? Shelton, did you say if this was a prism or a pyramid? It is a prism because we have 2 congruent bases that are stretched apart. That's the height of the prism is the stretch. And boy, this really doesn't look like the picture. Because in the picture on your paper, it's a regular pentagonal prism. And we always define a prism by the shape of the bases. This is 5 sides, pentagonal prism. Let's do 7 and 8. 7. First of all, prism or pyramid? Elijah, prism or pyramid? You said prism. Excellent. 7 is a prism. What is the shape of the bases here in this prism in number 7?
Square.
Great. Square prism. And I'm going to put the tick marks in because we need to know that the bases are squares. Now, can I ask you a stretching question here? Is that the same as a cube?
Yes.
If it was a cube, wouldn't we call it a cube?
Yeah.
There's one thing that this does not have that a cube would have. These are 2 square bases that are stretched apart, but with this stretch does not match the size of the base.
Yeah.
So we cannot call this a cube because a cube has the stretch the same as the base, okay? This is called a square prism. All right, and number 8, prism or pyramid?
Pyramid.
Pyramid, it comes to a point, I always think of Egypt. Whatever I can do to remember something, I really try to do. And the shape of the base is what figure?
Triangle.
So that is a triangular pyramid. Okay, any questions? I went over this with some of my students yesterday. Can everyone draw a cylinder in this blank spot? Because prisms and cylinders are very similar. And if you would, that way I can come around and check and see that you know how to draw a cylinder. Can I move the...
You can push pause.
Number 9 here is finding the volume. So we have what kind of shape there?
Rectangular prism. Yes, square prism.
Was it a square prism or a rectangular prism?
Square.
It's a square prism because the top and the bottom have side lengths 3 and 3, right? That's the length and the width.
Yeah.
So since this is 3 and this is 3 and this is 6, we're talking about a square prism. And what are we talking? We're talking inches here, okay? All right, so we have 3 inches, 3 inches, and 6 inches, and you needed to find the formula for volume of a square prism, right? So on your reference sheet, which formula was it?
Length times width times height.
Length times width times height, which is rectangular prism, but that's not a rectangle, is it? Yes, it is. All squares are rectangles. Remember that? But not all rectangles are squares. Okay, so this is a rectangular prism. So the volume is equal to length times width times height.
Also, did I mislabel number 7? I called it a square prism.
No, that's right.
Oh, okay. I'll formulate it.
Okay, so now we have, you need length and width. Remember, length and width are from your base, correct? So what are the length and width? 3 and 3, right? Those are each from your base of your shape. Okay, so if you didn't stretch it up at all, what would be the area, right? Now, the height comes from the height of the prism, and that means how far apart are your bases. So how much is that right there? That's 6. So now when you do 3 times 3 times 6, what do we get?
4 inches.
Inches what?
Square. No, cube.
Okay, it's inches cubed. Now let me show you why. Because attached to each one of these numbers right here is an inches, right?
Yeah.
What's inches times inches times inches? Inches cubed. Okay, because you're multiplying it by itself 3 times. Does that make sense? All right, and I'm going to